pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public input on agenda and non-agenda items. We did not receive any, so I believe we can move to the next part. Am I correct, Anthony?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay, right now we will have Mr. Carmelo with draft 4 of the budget.
Okay. Not anything I'm excited about delivering today, but the reality we're in. I just, before I was starting, was writing a couple notes here. I can't count how many people these last 2 weeks asked me if I was okay, everything all right. And I guess it's been showing on my face how extremely tough these last 2 weeks have been. It's just, I said last time in draft 3, heartbreaking, it's been devastating. I think I've said enough times for people to understand. I love Troy, I love the school district, I love being the superintendent. I'm so proud to be the superintendent. Proud of all the accomplishments we've made over the last 6 or 7 years in every school throughout the district, the graduation rate and all of that. And then for something that's beyond our control, something that hits our world, again, nothing that any of us did, we struggle to figure out a way to keep that rolling. And we will. Having said all that, we'll press on and we will find a way. But I just thought I should start with that because it's been as tough a 2 weeks. 29 years in education has been as tough a 2 weeks as I've ever had. I think the cabinet probably would agree with me. We've been talking about nothing but budget for the last 2 weeks. Meeting after meeting with each other, meeting after meeting with all administrators, meeting after meeting with all the unions, trying to come up with a plan. I think we've done it, and we'll go through it, and certainly answer any questions or address any concerns you might have. We'll talk a little bit about what comes next too, which is also pretty concerning. So let's go to it. Still start with our Tri-City School District mission statement. The Tri-City School District will provide a strong educational and social foundation to graduate all students college and career ready. It's the basis for every decision we make. It's the reason that we all come to work every day or go on our Zoom and Google meetings every day if we can't come to work. But that's it right there. We want to make sure that every student is getting what they need. And it's certainly been tougher during the last month and a half, and this budget is not making it any easier. The first several slides are the same as the last one. I thought it was important to repeat some of them. So we need to develop a budget that's fiscally responsible and educationally sound. Back in draft 1 and draft 2, we went in detail of what that meant. Fiscally responsible, keeping our taxpayers in mind, trying to keep the tax levy increase as low as we possibly could, but educationally sound, giving all of our students what they need to, again, make that mission statement happen, to give all our students what they need to be successful. And then, about, I don't know, has it been a month? Our world was changed. Again, for something that was beyond our control, but changed dramatically and significantly. Not only changed with the way we're delivering instruction over the last month, but changed with the way the state economy is, which has trickled down, or poured down, trickled is probably not the right word, poured down onto local school districts. The state budget, I talked about that pretty in depth last time as well. So the foundation aid amount for every school district across New York State was held at the 2019-2020 level. And I don't want to get too much into it again, but while that seems fair and equitable on its face, remember how I discussed last time, it ends up actually being unfair and unequitable because, you know, if a district was expecting 50 or 60,000 and they get that cut, that's something that they can easily absorb into what they were doing in their budget anyway. Districts like ours, we were expecting a $2.2 million increase. That's what was in the executive budget. And every other year, that was increased once the Senate and Assembly put their one-house budgets together and the final state budget was decided on. So for us to be looking at 2.2 million pulled right out from us and you know, possibly, you know, high 2 millions, it just becomes really, really tough. Just disproportionately affects districts like ours who are so dependent on state aid. So I sent that email. I actually sent a follow-up email this week because if you look at towards the bottom there, about 3 bullets down, one of the things that's in the final state budget is there are 3 assessment periods or evaluation periods that the governor has. If the revenues for the state do not come in to the level that are expected, from April 1st to April 30th, again from May 1st to June 30th, and then a longer one from July 1st to December 31st. If for any of those periods, the state revenues come in below expectation, then he has the right to then go to the state budget and make some cuts. And there's no guarantee that he goes to education when he does that, but the education piece of his budget is you know, obviously a big number. And so we've been told to be careful of that. If you listen to him this weekend, I think it was Sunday morning, he's on every day. He's doing a great job actually keeping the public aware and informed. But this weekend when he was on, he was pretty emphatic that more cuts are coming. We are hoping, there were a lot of emails around today to all the superintendents. The thing that we're all looking for and hoping for and asking for is for the federal government in one of their stimulus packages to direct money right to the local authorities, which would then be able to help with the school budget. So we have a plan to take care of the gap we're facing right now, but underlying that whole plan is the concern slash fear slash dread that more cuts could be coming. And the numbers he's talking about, and again, I hope the governor is being purposely exaggerative so that the federal government takes notice. But he was talking about, at one point over the weekend, he said half your aid could get cut. And another point, he said 20%. I mean, for either of those things to happen, it really, I mean, we really wouldn't even have a school district. I mean, half our aid is 20 million, and even 20% ends up being like 8 million. So you'll see the trouble, and you know what we've been through to try to close 3 million. If there's going to be another $7 or $8 million reduction, I mean, I don't even know what we would do. So again, I hope that he's making a point that help is needed from the federal government. But what the email I sent today to the same groups I sent last time, the School Boards Association, the Council of School Superintendents, the Small City School District group, as well as our legislators that we work with Assemblyman McDonald and Senator Breslin, just to say, like I said last time, don't make a 20% across the board cut, because again, that affects other districts less than it would affect a district like Troy. So I hope from the 2 emails that, I mean, I get responses every time. Small Cities has sent it around across the state. NISBA, the director, executive director of NISBA, and I had a phone conversation. He reached out to me last week to have a direct one-on-one phone conversation. So people are listening. Just hope that if there are more cuts coming, that they're done in a more equitable fashion. There's the draft 1 and draft 2 recaps. Again, really probably don't need to be there, but just want to keep in mind where we were. We were on our way to a pretty good budget development cycle. I mean, right where we wanted to be, assuming we were going to get a few $100,000 more in aid than even in the executive budget like we typically would in a regular year. So that's just, I guess, a reminder that things used to be pretty good. Our revenues were decimated, as you know, so that's $2.2 million gap. And so there was our gap that we talked about last time, the 2985327. You know, the big thing about a number that big is that first line there. You can't trim around the edges. You can't, you know, cut out supplies and equipment. You can't, you know, cut out small things here or there. 2.9 million really has to be people. It has to be programmed. It has to be staff, and that's the part that's been so hard to deal with over the last couple of weeks. So many sleepless nights for all of us trying to figure out how we're going to close that gap. You know, at the bottom of that screen, we write the goal is to have the least possible impact on students and learning. We write that goal there with the understanding that closing a $3 million gap, there's obviously going to be an impact to students and learning. But as we did our analysis, again, we've really been doing nothing but, you know, all day, every day for the last 2 weeks. As we've done it and analyzed everything in that budget, we had to come up with something that we feel is the least possible impact. But again, we understand that there are no good choices here, and that, you know, there is obviously going to be an impact. So there were some changes from draft 3 to draft 4. One in the two in the good and one in the not good. So our draft 3, I just said, had a 2985327 gap. The unemployment, if you've been following the news at the state level and the federal level, so the unemployment has been increased to 39 weeks now. So that number that we had originally put into draft 3, we needed to increase by 185,000 to take into account the additional 13 weeks to bump it up to 39 weeks total. But at the same time, we did get 2 additional retirements that, since we built in a draft 1 and draft 2, we had, remember those retirements went from 1 to 2, which lowered our number there. And then we had 2 additional ones since then. So that was some savings there. You can see 125,000. And the tier 1 additions that we had put into draft 1, remember at that point, we had taken requests from all the administrators, building principals, and department heads. What do you need to help students achieve even higher levels? You know, that was back in our budget time when we were looking at, you know, could we add some stuff to even make what we're doing here in Troy even better. So those 2 things were added in draft 1, and obviously in the middle of cuts and reductions, we can't add 2 of those 2 things that were there. So those tier 1s come out. That was 111, 173, with the 2 additional retirements, 125. But the added cost of the unemployment, our gap went down a little bit. It went about $50,000. So we're now looking at 2934327. Last time the board and I started this conversation, and so I promised I would give you this information, so here it is. So our tax cap, and we don't really have to decide right now, but you know, I wanted to give you the numbers so that as we look in a couple of slides, as we get to the, you know, the reductions that we're proposing, you can see what each one would do. So right now our tax cap is 2.13%. The gap that we're listing and the reductions that we're going to propose in a minute will get us to that number as long as we're at the 2.13%. That will cost the average homeowner, and we always do the average homeowner at $100,000, so you can adjust accordingly for houses, you know, assessed higher than that. But for the average homeowner, it's $47 a year. We're talking about less than $4 a month increase in taxes. Now, even $4, when people are, you know, some people are losing their jobs or losing salary or hours reduced or things like that. So I'm not belittling $4 a month, but we're talking about $4 a month for a 2.13. If we go all the way down to 163, which would be a 0.5% reduction, we do have to come up with $186,000 more in cuts. So, you know, the average employee, I mean, if we're going people there, that's probably 3 or 4 with their benefits. It goes down to $36 a month, so it goes down a little over $3 a month. So we're talking about a less than $1 a month difference between the 2 levies. And then in between, you know, I know we always talk about a 2% tax cap, and sometimes You know, in previous years, the board wanted to get like just below 2, so a 1.99% if you want to do that instead of 2.13. We still would have to come up with $52,000 more to close that, you know, close a gap of $50,000 more. The gap would be $52,000 more, excuse me. That becomes $44 a month. So again, we're talking about 26 cents a month difference between those two. Again, keep that in mind. We can come back to that slide after we talk about the reductions, but I know some of you felt strongly about the 2.13 last time, so I thought those numbers might help that conversation.
What did you base the 1.63 on? Was that something that we had, why did you come up with 1.63?
I just did a 0.5%.
Okay.
Is it a half? Yeah, I think I did.
Okay.
Tried to do
Okay.
0.5%.
Yeah, okay, I was just wondering how you came up with 1.63.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
I did one right under 2, because that's sometimes what the board asks for,
Right.
and then I did a 0.5%.
Percent under that, okay.
Good job.
No, 0.5% under the levy.
Good job.
So we can come back to that slide, but again, I thought putting the actual annual and monthly amounts in there might help that conversation. So what other changes since draft 3? Well, I met with all the union heads going back now, not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before, I think it was. In talking to cabinet and looking at the numbers, we originally, early on, tried to see how much a salary freeze would save the district. If everyone who's currently employed, their salary in 1920 would be the same salary in 2021, and it wasn't enough to, I mean, it certainly made a dent, but the gap ended up being still, I think it was, don't quote me on it, it was like 1.7 or something like that. It still was a high number, so we put it off the table for a little while. Then we started talking to cabinet again, and we made it a two-part thing. So if everybody's salary in 1920 is the same as their salary in 2021, and everybody changes a health insurance copay. So right now we have a health insurance plan with a certain copay. We are trying to get, move in that direction anyway, where everybody's increasing that copay. And so if everybody agreed to that, and I'm talking about everybody, the entire district, then we could save every job. There'd be no layoffs. So I said, let's get the union heads on the phone this afternoon. So that was like Thursday morning when we were talking about it, got them on Thursday afternoon. I was really excited about it. Thought maybe we had found a way. I thought what a message it would send to our students and to our families and to our community and to each other, that we're all in this together, that we can all take whatever hurt that is together. And I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do. That health insurance, is going to cost more for people, and you're not getting a higher salary. But compared to what some people are facing in the world, and compared to what you'll see on a slide coming up, where people are actually going to lose their jobs, I thought maybe we had come up with an answer. Unfortunately, only the Troy Administrators Association agreed to the plan. They actually called back the next day and said, we're in. And then in further conversations with them, we ended up agreeing to, we're in negotiations with them right now, so we ended up tentatively coming to an agreement on that. I went back to the TTA and CSEA, and I think they got tired of hearing me. I went back probably 5 or 6 times as we were agonizing over how can you close that gap, what layoffs would we have to do. I kept pausing and going back and saying, are you sure? Can you please reconsider? And they reconsidered each time. I know they had some meetings. They kept talking about it and saying they'd get back to me, and did, but I could not change their mind. So I know the TTA had a freeze, and some of us were here. That was probably 9 years ago, maybe the last time we were facing something like this. So they did the freeze then, which we were, I was the high school principal at that time, so I was here for it, and they just felt like 2 times in a 10-year span was too much. Anyway, I thought we had an answer. I thought we were going to come up with a miracle cure, but it was not to be. So there's the meat and potatoes of tonight's presentation. Again, should say again, there are no good choices. There's nobody, none of us in the district that were part of these decisions, mainly cabinet, but again, with the administrators, the principals and directors getting some of their input, with the board getting your input, none of us are happy with the things on that sheet. And I said, as least impact on student learning as it can, but again, $2.9 million gap, the positions that are going away, obviously we can't do that with no impact. So let me go through each thing there, and certainly open for questions. The first one, I just said from the previous slide, the administrators did agree to a freeze and moving up their changing all of their health insurance. And it should be noted, they're on an old prescription that nobody else really in the district is even on. So they're getting hit with health insurance copay and prescription copay and freezing their salaries. So we appreciate that. That's a savings of a little under 136,000. So that certainly helps. The instructional positions is obviously a big one. Mr. Mayor, you asked last time, something about the teachers, taking the brunt of it. And I mean, we went back and looked. I mean, I think I said it then, but we went back and looked just to make sure. I mean, 75% of our employees are in the TTA, and 75% of our total salary comes from the TTA. So really, that's where the money is. The other biggest group is CSEA, and they're right below that with their reduction. But when it's time to add for students to be more successful and trying to come up with supports and programs that will help our students, we add teachers and we add instructional positions. But unfortunately, when times get tough, and tough's not even obviously a big enough word for this, as times get desperate as they are right now, that's where the positions are. So that's where the place we have to go. So 23 instructional positions. Let me tell you how that all worked. We've again been sorry to keep repeating ourselves, but for the last 2 weeks, it's been nothing but trying to figure out in this budget what we can do to close that gap. Looking at the rules about layoffs in general, but especially instructional layoffs, because the salaries differ so much between a first-year teacher and a 30-year veteran. The rules are the last person in has to be the first person out. So if you're making layoffs, it's almost always the lower salary one. So if we were just going to blanket do layoffs across the district at all different grade levels and all different certifications and all different positions, we probably were in the 30, 31 range. As we're looking, we're trying to figure out, is there a different way we can deliver any of our programs and services? We're looking at everything. Is there a way, the things we do every single day, the things that are responsible for all the improvements that I talked about and how proud we are always of all the great things that are going on in all of our buildings, is there any of those things, are there any of those things that we could deliver differently? We want to try to reimagine what we're doing, and can we find a different way, other than just, let's say we have to have 30 positions cut and, just start picking. Let's be more targeted about it. Let's try to figure out where we're going. So one of the conversations I had with all the administrators is, think about the last 5 years and the improvements you made, and I've showed those slides every summer to the board as we're making achievements, improvement in achievements at all the elementary schools, at the middle school, and certainly in our graduation rate. What is responsible in your mind? Make a list of 3, 4, 5 things. And they talked about, the first thing I talked about was core instruction. The instruction from the classroom teacher and how much better we're getting at that. For those of you who are in the district, you know that Teachers College and Units of Study is a big part of the instructional program we're putting together now up through 6th grade. But even at the secondary level, the core instruction is where that's what really moves kids the most. And to make that core instruction work, one of the major things that he also talked about is class size. And the board has been fantastic about keeping our class sizes low. At the elementary level, I looked today just to make sure I had it right. The average class size at the elementary level is 19. So that's a great number. It's a great number. So we want to keep class sizes low. That was something they also felt like. It felt like the new social workers that we put in. And remember what a struggle that was over the last 7, 8 years. And we finally, about 3 or 4 years ago, started adding a couple each year. They talked about the difference that those people are making in the social emotional well-being of our students. So as a student comes to learn and comes to your classroom, the barriers to learning that some of them face every single day, the social workers and the counselors and people like that, those support people in those buildings, again, the administration talked about them making such a big difference. And the other thing that we added was instructional coaches. And Carol Hill was the first one to have 2 of those. And Mr. Stiles talks so glowingly about his instructional coaches and the difference they're having. And again, that difference becomes the difference in the core instruction that I just talked about. So the administrators, almost to a person, started listing those same things. Right? So if we're trying to keep all of those things, then going back to what could we do differently that we're doing now? And the answer came for our reading program, our reading instruction. So those 23 positions right there are our reading teachers. And so it may seem a little counterintuitive to be reducing our reading teachers in a school that has students that struggle to learn to read. But that's where the reimagining, that's where how can we deliver it differently is going to come in. We work with experts in the field in all things, but especially in reading and writing right now, and reaching out to them, not that they're making decisions for us, but just trying to get some opinions on it. And there are many schools that we visited that don't have any reading teachers, that the reading instruction comes from the classroom teacher. Again, if the classroom sizes are low enough, if the supports are there to help eliminate or at least reduce those barriers to learning that some of our kids face, if the PD can be there with the instructional coaches helping that core instruction be as rigorous and as effective as possible, we're all, and again, going back to the least possible impact on student learning, nobody wants to do this. There's no good choice here. But we felt like that was a place where we could repurpose it and deliver it in a different way and still hopefully get the same results or at least close to it. The other thing, those 23 positions, we took those names and made a list. 21 of them have multiple certs, so some of them have additional certs in classroom instruction, some are special ed teachers, a couple are English teachers, and so there will be an opportunity for those folks to be part of the district in a different role. Again, talking about finding a new way to deliver that same program. If you're a reading teacher, but you also have a classroom cert and can get a classroom job, you will be the classroom instructor with the reading background. And so, we're hoping again to get the best of both worlds. I am not trying to sugarcoat it and give the false impression that 23 people can find other jobs. We don't have that many openings with a gap that wide. But we do have some openings. We've had some retirements that we just talked about. I think there were 14 total. Several of those are classroom. There's some special ed retirements. And then there are going to be a few other openings, based on people, every year that come and go. So there is an opportunity for quite a few of those reading teachers to land in a different role in the district. The next 3 lines are all the CSEA folks. So there wasn't.
So
Yes.
Okay. So we're not filling a night maintenance position and a registration clerk. They're both vacant right now.
Yeah. I'll get down there. So clerical and labor custodians will be a layoff in each of those groups. Now, on the agenda tonight is a retirement incentive for CSEA, so I assume the board will approve that tonight. We've already discussed it, and there's a chance that if anyone takes those retirees, that retirement incentive, that we can look at those two positions and see it might actually be a position, but not a person at that point. But the next two, yes, Mr. Mayo, thank you. We have two open positions right now. One is a night maintenance and one is a registration clerk. Those have not been filled for several months, and so talking to CSEA, we're going to keep those open for the whole year. We're going to take them right out of the budget and then revisit it during the budget development process next year. We found a way to get by this year. I don't think it's easy, but again, those are positions that don't have people in them, so those are the kind that are easier than laying somebody off. And then the next are not person-related technology equipment, desktop computers. So we have a plan that Director of Technology, Aaron Shevers, and Mr. Hotelling have put together, maybe talking about 5 or 6 years ago, where we are every year updating computers on a plan that, as the 5 years come, the 5 years ago, as they expire, we're replenishing them on the other end. For those of us that were here in the 2 years in a row that we were in contingency budgets, and you're not allowed to buy any equipment during contingency budgets, and so computers and technology really went by the wayside, and we ended up being in a really, really tough spot in the district. Remember, we had that separate capital project just to upgrade our technology, and thank you for the voters for that. That was 7, 8 years ago. So we'll be careful not to get ourselves into that position, but in talking to Ms. Shevers and talking to Cabinet, we think we can get away with 1 year not doing it, just postponing those purchases until next year. Equipment and supplies. We started something, again, probably 6 years ago or so, where every teacher gets a $150 supply code that they can buy things in for the following year. It ends up being about 60 grand in that. So again, we'll put that on hold for a year, and then we grabbed about 40,000 more in just general equipment and supplies. Teachers will still be able to get supplies. They would just have to go through their principal or their director and use the regular supply code. So it's not like we're not having a supply code. We're just not going to have it the way it's been for 5 or 6 years, where each teacher has their own 150 that they spend. It's really at this time. They spend it in the spring for the following year. So we'll again put that on hold. That'll save us $100,000. Professional development. That was a tough one. I mentioned it early. One of the best things the Troy School District does is their professional development. We have teachers and administrators who come from other districts and rave about the opportunities that we give here to get yourself better at your craft, whether you're a teacher or administrator or whatever your position is in the district. A lot of that this past couple of years, a lot of that money from that code is on travel, going places. We've got some great stuff going on in New York City, but then traveling in New York City, staying overnight in New York City, the lodging and the travel really has built up to be a lot of money in that code. So what we've decided, just again talking about how can we deliver things differently, how can we reimagine what we're doing, the professional development will only happen here. So we're still going to use Teachers College, we're still going to use the units of study, but we won't be traveling to New York City. We've already been on the phone with them. Everything will be done virtually, just like we've been doing everything for the last month in the school district. We'll do a lot of professional development with our own people here. Dr. Watson, several years ago, we started saying Troy leads Troy, or Troy teaches Troy. And so our professional development days have been very often exclusively our people teaching our other people. So we'll focus more on that for the next year. We will cut out the travel and lodging for our employees for at least a year, and really cut down any professional development that isn't right here with our people. Home instruction budget, again, I talked to Mr. Canfield, who's in charge of that, and he was certain we could get that out. We have a program, when kids are on home instruction, they're on home instruction for a variety of reasons. Some are medical, some are behavioral. But what we've gotten to over the last couple of years is each kid that's in home instruction has a one-on-one tutor. And there are instances where you can combine students and combine with one tutor. So we're going to look to do a little more where appropriate. There are obviously some medically fragile kids and some other things, some other examples where we have to do it one-to-one. But where we can, we're going to try to do 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. Still small enough group where kids can get some individualized help with catching up on their classes. But that we estimate that will save another $100,000. And then the last thing to round out the 29, I think this all adds up to be about 2940, so it's a little bit above. But the last is the reserve utilization. So Mr. Hoteling has done a great job, and the board every year approves putting our stuff into different reserves. Remember, there's a new law now. Every time we deposit or withdraw from reserve, the board has to vote on that. So we've been putting things into specific reserves. There's some we're going to have to use now. The unemployment one, we hadn't had to use that in the last few years, so that got down to 100,000, which is why we have to have an added expense in our budget this year to take care of that unemployment cost. But ERS, TRS, workers' comp, there are a whole bunch of reserves. But there's also a reserve that's unassigned or unappropriated. So you have to be careful using too much of that. So I'll give a quick example. It's like in your own personal finances in your house. If you have a mortgage payment and a car payment due, and you don't have the revenue coming in from your work to match what's due for the car payment or mortgage payment, you go to your savings account and grab money. So let's say you grab $1,000 out of the savings account to make up the difference. First of all, that $1,000 is gone. So the following month, if the same expenses are there, then you're short the other $1,000, and you're actually going to have to go back for another. So it's a double hit every year you do that. So at times like these, there are people that really want to use a lot of reserve, and 400,000 I think is about our limit. Again, it's already going to put us in an $800,000 hole next year if we don't change our expenses. But also times like these are the times where you've got to go to your savings account. So again, going back to your own situations, if you get an emergency and you can't pay the bills, you don't have any choice but doing that. So I think 400,000 is a good number, helps alleviate what would have been, probably 8 or 9 more cuts, but we can take that out of there and help close the gap with that if the board is okay with that. So before I move to the next slide, let's talk about this slide.
What will that leave us in the reserve?
I don't have the exact number, but that's probably less than 10%. So I mean, it's just a matter of how you want to use it long term. As Jamal said, use it in a smart way. This is a planned actual utilization, which means we run a deficit and we plug that deficit with this money. So I think it's a smart way to do it. We're really concerned about the ERS and TRS rates for next year. Obviously, that's linked to the stock market. So we want to use some to mitigate the cuts a little bit, but look to next year also as a stopgap measure.
And the other thing I said at the beginning is, the further cuts is still looming. So again, I don't think we can go too much higher than that. But if we get further cuts from the state, then we can discuss maybe going in for another 100,000 or something. Again, you don't want to put yourself in too much of a hole. I mean, even 500,000 will put you in $1 million hole the following year.
And you got to remember, this is a budget, so I'd say that 400,000 is really a range. if we have a good year revenue-wise or expense-wise, maybe we actually really only use 200. But if we have a bad year for some unknown reason, revenue-wise, that might be 600 really at the end of the year. You've got to be very careful about appropriating just too much.
And Mr. O'Connor did bring up a good point. I mean, there is a chance, especially on that third evaluation period that the state had in there. Remember, that was July 1st to December 31st. If this situation in New York and across the country by next September or October is corrected, and the stock market has recovered somewhat, and the economy is back to a somewhat normal level, you know, there is the hope that next December comes and revenues can be added, and so there's a chance that at that point, you know, we're in a better spot.
But there's also a bigger chance that there's gonna be more cuts.
Probably a bigger chance, at least in the short term, that there are more cuts coming.
And we would have to show that in this budget, in what's going on now, right? I mean, if it comes April 30th, and the governor says, you know, we're taking more back, which he didn't sound very optimistic when it came to school districts. So we have to be prepared for
Yeah.
more.
So this is a great point, so let's talk about that real quick. We had talked last time about possibly trying to finalize some things tonight, and we can finalize things with the understanding that we weren't talking about voting on it until May 6th, that first one in May anyway, and we still, later on in the presentation, you'll see, we still don't know when the budget vote and board elections are going to be. There's still no guidance on it. There's some rumors that it'll be June 9th. But that's just people trying to guess which Tuesday in June they're going to pick. The primary for the state, the regular election primary, is June 23rd. So my guess is it'll be one of the three before that. So, but until we know that, we won't know where all those other things go. But yeah, so we can agree in principle tonight, or even, you know, on May 6th. Well, on May 6th we should know. When April 30th comes, if there's another million or two or nine, like he said, then we'll have to have a new meeting and
So
figure it out.
I think we should wait, that's my opinion, but, I mean, we know where we are as of right now. But but say for April 30th comes and, okay, we gotta trim some more, I mean.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
Yeah,
I mean, but we know where we are right now, I mean, this is what we're facing as of April 21st,
yes.
you know,
9 days if we did.
9 days, it could be,
Yeah. So when that comes,
could be that.
Thursday's the 30th, so my guess is we'll hear that next day on May 1st. We can even set up a meeting for that Monday. Our board meeting's that Wednesday. We can
the
set a meeting
6th,
for
we're gonna
that.
do it the 6th. The next meeting's May 6th.
Right, so we can set one up for that Monday or Tuesday the 4th or 5th if you want to have just a budget workshop.
Oh, yeah.
If the numbers are,
I'm sorry,
you know, if the numbers are that big. So it's always look at me because that means we're gonna be working all weekend.
I mean, and, you know, no one has a crystal ball, but if the federal government doesn't pass something, I think we're gonna have short-term issues. You know, I don't think this is gonna be the end. They did pass something, I think, today, or
They did.
close to it, but it's just, I don't think it's close to enough money.
Well, it wasn't, yeah, what they passed today though, is the next step in what they had to do, which was the small businesses mainly. And so, the information that came out is once this thing's done, and it seems to have been finally agreed upon, the next thing would be where the local governments, and those local governments' revenues is what we need. That in turn would come to us, some of it.
I just hate to go out with something to everyone and say, okay, this is where we are right now, but, and then 9 days from now have it
Yeah,
fall apart that much more.
I mean, I want to make sure we got the 2.9 covered. If for some reason April 30th comes and there is no further, doesn't mean
That's
that
great.
June 30th it might not happen, right? So at some point, we're going to have some indecision, but that's where, you know, that's where we'll be. We have covered the 2.9 at this point. If the board wants any questions or comments, or if the Citizens Advisory Group has any comments or questions that want answered on, these are best case scenario, again, no good choices to close a $3 million gap. This is our best case scenario on how we figured we can do it and, you know, still keep our growth and improvement going.
Now, we have the 2.9 covered if we take the cap of 2.13.
Great point.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that's, as a board, that's what we need to discuss too, where we want to go.
Yeah, so we're covered, that sheet that's still up there covers the 2.9. If we want to go back,
Right.
so if you wanted to go down to 199, we'll have to come up with another 52,000. He said, please vote on your own.
Did you really?
So, you know, it'd be another 52,000 there. Now, again, we can have that conversation, but going back to Tom's point, one of the things that will happen before that other one might be also the retirement incentive. So there's some things that could play into, does that 52,000 get counted in other places, you know, with another retirement or something else, if you want to wait. But those are the numbers if you want to certainly have that discussion now. You can have it.
It's all quiet out there. Does anybody out there have anything? Whether it be board members, non-board members, anybody?
I don't think not.
I had a question about the cuts to home instruction. Can you give me a little detail about what that means?
Yeah, so at this point, Matt, I don't think I can give it to you more than I did, but I'll try. So I met with Mr. Canfield, and our home instruction budget was, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it was like in the $400,000 range. So when Mr. McCanfield and I sat down to really review it and analyze it, when things are going well, we always err on the side of students. And so Mr. Canfield has been doing it where every home instruction, every tutor has only one student. So in looking at his list of kids that need home instruction, whether it's for medical reasons or behavioral reasons, there are enough of them that could go 2 or more. You know, we have the 3 to 6 program at School 12, and so in that 3 to 6 program, instead of being in a room with only 1 kid, you might be able to be in a room with 2 or 3 kids who are doing similar work and get them all going, and that saves, now it's 1 tutor for 2 or 3 kids instead of 3 tutors for them. So again, there are going to be some that still need to be one-on-one. That's why we put 100,000 there. But Mr. Canfield was pretty confident we would be able to trim that much off. That answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, it does, because I was actually thinking, you know, in our current situation that almost everybody is doing home instruction, so.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, it's not that home instruction. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is home instruction during our regular school year. Again, some kids have medical issues that they're out on home instruction, and some kids are there for behavioral reasons.
Andrew Carmel, Nathaniel Wooden here. How are you doing?
Who's that?
Nathaniel Wooden?
Oh, how you doing, sir? Yes.
I'm doing well. Thanks for all the due diligence that the group is putting forward on this.
Yeah.
Unprecedented times, right? So we've got to do what we've got to do. Is there any concern with the budget cuts that are being made that state requirements for things like IEPs and otherwise can still be, the requirements can still be met with the reduction in staff?
Great question. So, you know, again, the reading teachers wouldn't have addressed any of those concerns. So we don't have any cuts to special ed other than the 2 tier 1 additions that we put into draft 1. And I made sure I called the director of special ed and said, are we still going to be able to meet the needs of the students? And she assured me we were. One was an OT, if you remember back in draft 1. Our OTs, you know, Again, I think in a normal time, that's why we put it as a tier 1 into draft 1. In a normal time, we needed one more OT to spread out the caseload for all of them. But they've been working with the number they have right now for the last 8 years, so they'll just keep doing it at least for one more year. And then the special ed position that we added at the middle school, Ms. Fitzgerald, who's the director of special ed, is finding a way with taking the current employees and maybe an extra assignment, which costs a lot less than a whole person, to cover those IEP concerns. So great question, but yeah, I think those are going to be covered. But it's also one of the reasons that we didn't cut, other than the additions we were going to make, we did not cut special ed teachers for that reason.
Brilliant, thank you so much.
Thank you. Other comments, ladies, anything?
I have a question about the 23 reading teachers.
Yeah.
So are you just going to keep it at the 23, like you were talking about, obviously you take the lowest tenured?
No, there are only 23.
There's only 20, okay,
Yeah.
so
It's every reading teacher.
every single reading teacher?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, it's that, for sure. Yeah, it's everyone. But again, many of them are dual certified.
Right, so you said
So,
possibly there'd be
so
other
there'll be
openings that they
opportunities
could-
for.
I was just thinking you're not
several.
going to take them and then take the lowest tenured teacher and take a reading teacher and give them that job.
No.
Okay.
No. The openings that we have, it's a great question. The openings that we have, and again, with the retirements, I don't have the numbers in front of me, we have at least 2 special ed retirements, so there'll be 2 special ed openings. So if you're a reading teacher with a special ed cert, and you're interested in those 2 openings, you would interview, apply for the job, and have that opportunity. More of them than special ed, more of them have classroom teaching experience. And I think we're going to have, with the retirements, and again, every year people come and go, so I think we're in the 5 or 6 range of openings at the elementary level. So those reading teachers with that cert will be able to apply for those jobs. Great question.
It probably is the best choice though, to keep the class sizes where they are.
Yeah.
We
Instead
worked,
of taking them,
That's what we think.
we worked hard on that.
instead of taking the class.
Years ago, it was like up at 30s, these elementary classes, and it was crazy. And everybody's worked so hard to get that down, and it shows, the benefits definitely show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so important.
Yeah. And you're right, and the research is clear on that the core instruction of the classroom teacher, as long as the class sizes are manageable and the supports are there, and that's where the improvement in student learning happens.
John,
Yes?
what if we get a couple more teachers retired? Can we bring, so would that $52,000 plus $80, would that be their kind of like, if we have 1 or 2 more
Yeah.
retired?
Yeah, so there are some, I'm getting feedback.
Possibilities.
Yeah, and I apologize for the feedback to the people that are out there, because I'm getting it here a little bit, but great question, Ms. Apicella. So there's somebody out there that I'm hearing is retiring, but we haven't heard officially from her. So yeah, if another teacher retires, or again, somebody takes the CSEA incentive, we will measure how much savings that is. A teacher retiree is obviously more savings, but if the board is looking at that 199 and looking at that 52,000, another teacher retirement would get us close to that.
Even our CSEA members with the Senate.
Yeah, CSEAs, we don't get the breakage, like the kind of breakage that we get with a teacher. The teacher, the 30-year teacher's salary compared to the first-year teacher's salary is a much bigger gap than a 30-year CSEA or clerical or facilities person and but there'll be some.
Right,
There'll be some.
there'll be some.
Whatever we get, we'll put a dollar amount to it, and so when we come back for the next meeting, whatever that's gonna be, and maybe that Monday or Tuesday in May is a good idea for that, to have some of this discussion, but we will tell you how far above the 2.9 we are at that point. And again, that assumes the governor's not gonna cut more, but if he doesn't, and we get another retiree, we probably could cover that 52.
So why don't we plan, if the numbers do change at the end of the month, we do have just a special meeting,
On Monday or Tuesday, which we do
the
rather.
Monday or Tuesday. either or, because we're gonna be here that Wednesday,
You have to be
so
here Wednesday, so it has to be one of those available.
it could be Monday. I mean, it doesn't,
It's up to you guys.
it's up to you guys. I mean, yeah, leave it up to you, you and Adam have to do the numbers, so.
Yeah, so
Make
maybe,
it,
maybe Tuesday, if that's okay. 'Cause
maybe
if
better.
it comes out late Friday, we'll only have Monday.
Right, so
We
let's
certainly
make it
have been
Tuesday.
talking over the weekend, but we really can't crack the numbers.
Then do it Tuesday.
So Tuesday the 5th, if the numbers change from the state, right?
Correct.
And we'll be in touch with everybody before then, obviously.
You know what I just noticed? The three of us were the only three on the board the last time we did the big cuts. We're the only.
What about Stephanie?
Oh, Stephanie, were you on the board then?
I was,
Were you? Okay.
and some memories.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, not good memories.
yeah,
We've had great memories since then,
yeah.
and hopefully we get 8, 9 more after this.
We've come so far.
Right now, yep, we've come so far, and then, again, beyond our control, that could get pulled out from others.
But every year, except the year when we had the contingency budget, we had 2.1, every year it's been 2 point something. Every single year it's been 2 something. But this is personal. I'm speaking for those who are affected by the salary cut. No paycheck, no jobs. You have a husband and wife with no income. That $47 to them is like $300 added on to a year. They have no income coming in. The stimulus check that some receive, the money is gone. People who are out there volunteering, giving out food at the food pantries, now they found out they're recipients because they have no money. It may be small and minute to us who are financially sound, but it's a significant barrier on those without money.
I disagree with that, so.
I just, hats off to the administrators for, doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's huge.
Yeah. I mean, we thankful that they're doing that.
Absolutely.
Because this could be a lot worse right now.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, so we are looking at another meeting?
We'll keep you informed,
If things change for the, by the end of the month, and if they don't by the 6th, this is what we have.
the only thing we have to
just gotta
decide,
decide
if
the
there
number.
are no further cuts on April 30th, or May 1st, or whenever they do it, then the only thing we would decide is,
That number.
we're done, but if there are no cuts, then I suppose maybe in an email or something, we can have, I don't know what we do, because you have to tell me which one of those. Here's what we could do, we could come out with our plan for addressing those 3 levels, and then the board can decide on Wednesday which one they want.
You have a resolution for each?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you have to do?
Yeah, we need a resolution that night, right?
I believe so.
If that's the night we have to vote.
Anthony, is that?
That's true.
Anthony's here.
I mean, you're better off probably setting a special meeting the next week,
Adam's just so.
Yes.
depending on when you're gonna vote.
So let's plan for that Tuesday night anyway, and just to talk about that and decide.
Right. That's fair.
And by then, we should have, whatever, if it's CFEA, we should have
At least an idea.
Right,
Yeah.
we have an idea if somebody else is gonna retire, and maybe teachers.
So we'll have a meeting on a budget workshop on Tuesday, May 5th, and then our regular board meeting on Wednesday, May 6th. Either way, so that we can discuss all that stuff and then bring the actual resolution with the real numbers on Wednesday. Any other questions or comments?
No, it's just that I
I guess I think I still have some slides, I don't know. One is the budget calendar, it's the same slide as last time except for the end. We still don't have an answer. I said the rumor is June 9th, and as soon as we know, I certainly will let the board know, and we'll get it out on our social media so everybody knows. That'll be board elections and the budget vote. One thing I did hear also today was they might do it all by mail. I don't know if that's true or not, but I to hear that.
Oh, my God, that'd be great.
Yeah. So we've already kind of planned for that by ordering more ballots that way. I said that last time, and it's still true, great and dedicated staff. Mr. Manning just said thank you to the administrators, we have an amazing school community, we're going to get through it. This is not a great thing, it's not a good thing, it's not anything we're excited about, but we will all rally together as soon as we can get the kids back in this building and all the buildings, whether that's sometime next month and a half or next September. But we will we'll continue our improvements one way or another. We will find them. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Okay, action items, request card resolutions, motion for consent agenda items 1 and 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Superintendent recommendations, human resources, staff matters, unclassified. Motion for consent agenda items 1 through 5.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Board resolution CSEA MOA retirement incentive as listed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Future meetings, actually we've got to add one, Teresa, to the schedule. Tuesday, May 5th, we'll do it at 6 o'clock, is that okay with everybody?
Call it a budget workshop?
Yeah, we'll call it budget workshop, Tuesday, May 5th, 6 o'clock here at Troy Middle School. And then our future meetings, May 6th at 6:30 here at Troy Middle School, May 20th, 6 p.m. at the middle school, and June 3rd at 6 o'clock at the middle school. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add before we?
Yeah, just congratulations to Erin Sheeter for tenure.
She's listening.
Yeah, she's out there listening.
Oh, okay, congratulations, Erin.
Erin Sheevers has been so fantastic during this. Matt Flowers just brought up the home instruction that everybody's doing right now, and our teachers have been amazing, our principals and directors have been amazing, but nobody can do what they're doing without Erin Sheevers and her team and her department stepping up in all hours of the day, over the weekend, making sure that the connectivity's there, that everybody knows how to get on, and all of that stuff is working. She's been doing an amazing job. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything else?
Yes.
Cal, can you speak?
As coming in this afternoon, this evening, I saw a long trail of vehicles and the Troy police cars out there. I had no idea who was being recognized. Does anyone know?
We do
We
not.
don't know.
I asked the same question, Ms. Hartman. I know School 2 had their parade, but that was about 11 a.m., so I wasn't sure who that was out there. I'm going to have to find out.
I mean, it would have been nice if the superintendent knew.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
You had your car in line off.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm not sure it had
we
anything
don't
to do
want
with
that.
us. I think they might have just met there. I don't know if it was RPI or something. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but we'll find out.
And the last one is, I've been trying to keep up with the information on the media, and they're saying that the schools will be closed now on May 15th. But is the Troy City School District prepared that they say they're just going to finish out the year without having any more classes?
We will be extremely disappointed if they say that, Ms. Hartman. I think our kids, there's a good chance that that's going to happen. I'm hoping for the May 15th date. I think our kids need some closure. I think they need to get back in school, even if it's for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, just to feel some normalcy, get to have our graduation ceremony and some of the end of the year things at all the schools, and moving ups, and even though they might be a little bit different. I think our kids need to see our teachers and see our adults before then. If we end the way we're doing it now, I think it's going to be really tough on them. So I'm hoping we're back.
And most of our teachers won't come back.
Yeah. And Mr. Mayo and other parents who have seniors that are really struggling with it.
Yeah, Mr. Carmelo, as a point of reference, my daughter Natalie, who is 12, said back when I was a lot younger, before coronavirus.
feels.
I'm like, wow, from the mouth of babes.
Yes, for sure.
It's hard to imagine that we've only been doing this for such a short amount of time.
What day did we start doing it?
The 17th of March,
Yeah.
so we've only been doing it a month.
Yeah, well, it does seem like forever. I mean, I'm ready for it to be over, so, back to Ms. Harvin's question, I will gladly take May 15th, and we'll be ready to, accept everybody with open arms.
On that note,
Does anyone have anything else?
yeah, I'm good.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.